Okay, it says that we are live. So a couple minutes before we get started here, I'm going to look on my phone just to make sure everything is working okay. I'm a one-man production today, so I don't have anybody else watching for me. You might hear my dogs barking in the background, so I'm going to go ahead and apologize for that right now. We are coming from the Pixel Connection remote studio, if you will, and we're going to be talking about keeping the creativity flowing. So I'm going to jump on real quick just to make sure we're nice and live on Facebook. If you are seeing this live, please comment wherever you're seeing it. If you're on our website, we're working on getting a place to put comments there. But if you do want to interact with the video, head to our Facebook page or the direct YouTube channel as we're working on that. That was one of the requests that we had yesterday. So that is a work in progress. I promise you, if we can figure it out, it will be there. I promise you of that. So jumping into Facebook here. Making sure, again, if you are seeing this, if there is Earth or if there is beings out there in true ET fashion, if anybody is out there, please let me know. Send a signal of some sort. I prefer chatting. Send me a text if you know who I am. I want to know that this is getting out there. So I'm going to do a real quick type. Is anyone out there? Let's see. Is anyone out there? Yes, I can hear you. Les says. Little spotlight here. I see you. Everybody joining us. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, everybody. It looks like everybody's coming from Facebook. Anybody from YouTube out there? Can we get a YouTuber to send us a quick message? All right. So what have you guys been shooting? Put in the comments what you've been doing to occupy your mind. Have you been reading? Have you been photographing? Have you been watching endless reruns of something cool on Netflix we should watch? Put it in the comments. What have you guys been up to? As we're waiting to come in, I'll put those up on the screen so that way we can all connect. This is a virtual way for us to distance ourselves, but not necessarily social distancing, because we're being social. We're just being distant. We're being distant from each other. So we're still interacting. We're still having a good time. Looks like we have Pam is doing some flowers and some macro. We're going to be talking about that today. You skip to the end. You skip to the end. Eeyore, what do we have from Eeyore? A man of many words. He says thumbs up. He can see us out there. Looks like Cynthia is joining us from Norwalk, Ohio. Not too far from me. I'm actually in Nova, Ohio. So about a hop, skip, and then a jump away from you. Everybody says we can see you. Where's everybody coming from? What are we shooting? Macro for me too, but only with extension tubes. Very cool. So we'll talk about a couple other macro tips and techniques as well. We're watching a series on Amazon. Les, what series is that? Is that one that you want to recommend to us? Is it a good series that you've been watching? I want to hear from you guys. What are we into? This is a great kind of pre-production. Before we get started here, we still have about 2 minutes before we get started. Making sure your audio sounds okay. Making sure you can see me okay. Once we get started, it'll be less picture-in-picture, and it'll be more of just the screen. But again, this is just a way for you to put a name with a face and just to know who your presenter is. For the last couple days, we're actually still working at the Pixel Connection, just kind of splitting up the shifts. So the store is open for a couple hours a day. So I'll be there. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to zoom, drive to Avon, and I will be there to support you. But we have a whole team that is here to help you guys. According to the order, it specifically says photography equipment. People that support those industries are deemed as essential businesses, which means we get to stay open for you guys. So if I talk about anything today, like extension tubes or reversal rings, things like that, and you want to pick up some, you get free shipping, or you can do curbside pickup. We do that kind of, you pull up, you flash your lights, and we know you're there, and we bring your stuff out, super safe, super clean, and then we go in and take a antibacterialized shower to keep everybody nice and safe and nice and clean. So if you do need something, please feel free to reach out and let us know. We're here to help you. These lunch and learns are going to happen every day, so we can hopefully connect and keep sharing kind of the art of photography with everybody. So let's see what everybody else is doing. Tried photo 2 days ago. It is Oh, it is The Wire. So two different thought processes there. He was doing some photos a couple days ago, and then the name of the series Les is watching is The Wire. I will have to add that to my watch list. Thank you. So we have Bonnie Underwood. She is waving hi from Illinois. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you coming in. See, we're crossing state lines. If we would have had this class in store today, you wouldn't be able to be here. So it's great. This is a great medium for us. Les doing a lot of tutorials and optimizing images from trips. I know I have. So I was just in Ireland. I got out right in time about 3 weeks ago. So I have all this like backlog of images from Ireland, and like I'm super happy to be working, and I'm super glad that we can still support photographers. But I was like, I wish, you know, if I had this time, I could do this, I could do that, I could edit my photos finally. I still have images from my last trip to Ireland, which was in the summer. So catch up on all of your edits. So that way, when you go out and shoot, you're going to be editing all that fresh stuff. Great tip, Les. Very, very good tip. So it is about noon o'clock. So we're going to go ahead and get this kicked off. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm going to jump over to just the presentation now. So the whole idea is, you know, keeping the creativity flowing, if you will, or flowing. And I wanted to talk about like 5 things that you could do while you are stuck inside. So let us know you're here by typing something in the chat. So if you're just joining us, we would love to hear from you and where we're connecting with you connecting with you and where you're from. There we go. So a couple housekeeping notes. My friend Eeyore will be, as will I. So if you have any questions, I'm going to hopefully highlight those in the broadcast because chances are if you have a question, someone else probably does as well. So put those questions in the chat and someone will be sure to answer those for you. We are still open at the store. So from 1 to 5, we're here to serve you. We're offering curbside pickup and or free shipping on most items. So feel free to reach out if there's something that you need right away. Please let us know. Also, if there's something that you want us to cover in a future live stream, please let us know in the comments below. If you're like, hey, I want to know from you guys, like, hey, how are you doing this? How are you doing this live stream? I think that's important for people right now. I feel like I'm talking to the camera. I'm talking to you guys. I have this urge to like actually connect with you guys. So if there's something that you want to learn about, please let us know in the comments below as well. And our goal is to do this every weekday at noon. And then I have the schedule set for the next couple weeks. I just have to do some kind of fine tuning and confirm with some people. But the great thing is it's not just my face that you're going to see on these live streams. So I'm actually connecting with photographers from all over the US to bring you guys the best content possible. So it would be like if you were coming to one of our demo days, if you have questions specific, start writing them down. Our goal is to get all the brands on here and have some fireside chats with them. So want to highlight a couple users here. Hello, John. How are you doing? Great to thank you so much for tuning in. We have a random Facebook user that says, hi, TJ. Hi, Facebook user back. Nice to see you. We have Danny. He is checking in from Seville, Ohio. So the road that I live on, 224, if you just keep going all the way that way by about 25 minutes, that's where he's joining us from. So thank you guys so much for joining. And like I said, this is going to be every day at noon is our goal to do these different fireside chats. So let's get started with some of our a couple more housekeeping things. I wanted to bring your guys' attention to the PPA. So the Professional Photographers of America is an organization that I've been affiliated with since I started my business back in 2011-ish. I ran a local organization, a PPA group out of Akron. I've just been they've been monumental in helping me grow as a photographer, but also as a business. And the reason that I bring this up is they are actually opening up their entire library of educational content for the next 2 weeks. So definitely take a look, sign up. PPA is a phenomenal organization. They offer gear insurance. They offer all different types of insurance as well. And that's just part of your, I want to say it's like between 30 and 40 bucks a month normally. But you get so much. You get contract templates, you get advice, you get, I mean, there's just so many benefits that make it worthwhile. But even if you just want the classes for the next 2 weeks, go ahead and jump in there and grab those. You can see I put that link there, the ppa.com/inittogether, and that'll be where you can get some free content. What are our goals for today? I think it's important that we set our goals ahead of time, so that way, if this is not what you signed up for, you don't have to stay. I do want to say too that this entire presentation will be available on YouTube as well as Facebook. So afterwards, if for some reason you can't stay for the entire thing, it will be uploaded at a future time. So number one, my goal is to pull you guys away from the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that is out there. Right now, we're going through something that we've never gone through. And yesterday I recorded a podcast, another thing that we're launching at Pixel Connection. And we talked a lot about this, in that this is not something that I look back to my business classes in college. There was not a chapter on pandemic. So I know there's photographers that are watching that are freaking out about their businesses. I know there's even hobbyists that are worried about, their full-time job. So my goal here today is to get you away from that, get you out of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and just think about photography. For the next half hour, 45 minutes, let's just think about photography. Let's not think about, the curve and what's happening. And, let's get that out of our head. Let's just talk about photography, an art form that we all connect with. That's what brings us all together. So that was my number one goal, is just to connect with you guys on that level and kind of get you into a place where you're thinking about photography. So number two would be get you motivated to try something new outside of your comfort zone. As I was working on building this presentation, now I've been a trainer for a long time. I did this for 2 years with Panasonic. So multidisciplinary, I would have to teach all these different things. But honestly, it's something that I've never really poured my whole heart into. And as I'm going through this, especially like the food photography one, I'm totally going to geek out on some food photography because that's one of the things that I've never done before. And if you follow any of my other projects like weight loss and exercising, and that's something that the whole last year has been a huge part of my life, I think we'll dive deep into some photography. So I'm going to get outside of my comfort zone, which is normally interacting with people and weddings and portraits and stuff like that, and just kind of delve into this kind of whole new world, if you will, channel my inner Aladdin and go into a whole new world. And that's what I want to motivate you guys to do. I want you guys to try something new. The other thing is I want to help you discover what could be a new niche. A friend of mine recently posted in a local business group that he's normally a portrait wedding photographer, but he posted, he's like, hey guys, I've done product photography in the past. Is this something that anybody would be interested in this business group? And that's my goal here of getting you outside. This might become a profitable niche for you in the future. So what I want you guys to do is just think about, if this is something that you haven't tried before, just give it a try. You have nothing, you probably have other things to do, but you really have nothing else to do for the next couple weeks. Why not jump into a new niche that you could find profit in the future? So from there, we will share resources too. You can email social@thepixelconnection.com and I will get a copy of that. And the last slide on this presentation as well will also have that email. Now, in this presentation, there are going to be a ton of resources. So what won't this presentation be? This presentation is not going to be the end-all, be-all in all these different disciplines, these 5 or so different disciplines. It's meant to just kind of wet your whistle a little bit, just get you kind of thinking about it. But what I do is I give you 5 to 10 different, actually 5 resources to get you started from there. So we're going to share for all the different areas, tons of resources. And then I have another slide with just inspiration. Some Instagram photographers or photographers that are on Instagram that excel at these areas as kind of some inspiration for you to try to, if it's something that you haven't done before, you don't really know where to start, some inspiration for you to go ahead and get started. So let's dig right into it. If there is no questions, I do want to highlight this one. Shoot anything and everything. I absolutely love that one. That is a very, very good point from my friends that are monitoring the Pixel Connection account. And again, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I will put those up and we can all discuss them together. So let's talk about food photography. So number one is to prepare your food with photography in mind. So when I've tried to do food photography in the past, one thing I struggled with was it didn't always look pretty, whether that was in a restaurant and it came out or it was food that we cooked at home. So you have to kind of prepare your food with photography in mind. And you have to think about your food is the model. So you have to stage that model. You have to set up that model. People aren't eating these dishes, and sorry, I have to be looking at the screen too. I'm sorry. People aren't eating this food like this. This isn't how the food comes out of their oven. They're styling this. They are setting this up. They're using the food as their model. They're designing the scene to get images like that. So our goal with food photography is to treat it like any other model or any other thing that we are going to photograph. We need to prepare your food with photography in mind. We need to style your food just like it's a model. And number 3 is you are still telling a story. We are storytellers. So a couple things you could do is kind of while, the process of the food, kind of as it's being prepared, you can, photograph it while it's being cooking. You can have it, looking through the oven. You could mount a camera inside the oven after it's done and close it and just light it, from that perspective of, being inside the oven, what that's like. So there's a lot of creative things that you could do with that, but you have to have this mindset of what you kind of have the end in mind, if you will. Number 4, we want to think about the colors of the food. You don't want it to be all green and bland. That's boring to the user. It all comes back to kind of your photography basics. We have to remember everything we know about photography when it comes into food photography. We have to know what colors are harmonious, what colors don't go together, what are, complementary. So you have to have all of that in mind when you are doing food photography. Pepper in some light, pun intended. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. So I am fortunate that I have these constant lights that I purchased over the last couple years as I've been doing more and more video stuff. But if you don't have that, you can just get window light. If you read all the tutorials out there, they say start with window light. That's the most natural light. And what you can do is you could just take pieces of paper and you can make kind of a reflector. If you have a reflector for your portraits, you can use that to kind of bring light back into the scene. So again, you have to treat it like any other model, and all your lighting, all this stuff still applies, but it doesn't have to be hard. If you have a flash already, use it. If you have a constant LED, use it. If you have the light that comes off the back of your cell phone, use it. It's time to be creative. It's time to try something new. It's time to solve problems. Also with food, you have to remember to style your background. So a lot of times, we talk about photography that foreground and background is important. We say that all the time, but we tend to put more weight, especially with like portrait photography, with our foreground element, how the model looks, how he or she is posed. You have to really take into account both the foreground and the background with food photography. So you have to make sure that the food on the plate is styled perfectly. You have to make sure, if you look at the presentation, they didn't just have this on an empty white table. They designed around it all the pieces that go with it, because when you look at this meal, you're automatically thinking, like, I'm getting hungry, it's lunchtime, I need to lunch and learn myself, but it's like I'm sitting there with this meal, with the different sauces, with the pico, with the different salsa, things like that. Because they decorated around it, the actual plate itself, it gives me a sense of place of what goes with that. And all those background elements are almost as, if not more important than what the actual subject matter is. So another thing you want to do is you want to use your depth of field very deliberately. So this image that I put over here on the right, you can see where they're using that depth of field to get you to focus on the fact that this is French toast with bananas and blueberries. And then you can kind of see it fades off. Where the one on the left, everything's in focus because they want you to see absolutely everything in that frame. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that depth of field when you are putting together or styling your food photography. Another thing you could do is get a different angle. So we talked about this on yesterday's live stream about birding, and that is to get a different angle. So shoot it one way. So you can see this is kind of over top with this image on the left. And then the one on the right is kind of angled down looking up to that, I believe it's French toast. Yep, French toast. And it's kind of angled up. You're looking up at it. So try different angles with your food photography. And you might find something that you would have never thought of just by kind of switching up, down, left, right, and just kind of moving around. Next is we have to remember to use our lines and then also our layers. So we can see, we have some pretty good lines here in this image. We also are using our, with this image here on the left, we're using different layers in order to build depth into that image. So that we have to remember everything about composition in our normal photography in food photography. And finally, print your images. You know, that's a really fun thing. And it was something that my business really took off when I started doing a lot more printing and not doing that kind of shoot and burn or digital only business style, is when I actually started printing my images. And you can't see them up on the wall. If you watch the Instagram live stream, you saw my background. But I have images up here on my wall from Seattle, from a concert, from Florida. I have these metal prints in my office, and I look at them and it takes me back there. And the same thing for food. You know, you should print off these pictures and be proud of them. And people will ask when they come over, hey, what is that? You know, why pay for, you know, this decor at, you know, IKEA and all these different places when you can make your own art? So definitely print off your images. We're a huge fan over at Pixel Connection for printing. So we have a little shout out. Jason Schaefer is an incredible local food photographer and a customer. Check out his Instagram, Schaefer Photo, or Facebook, Jason Schaefer Photography. Boom, there's another inspiration. Go follow. Well, you'll be able to watch this live stream later. But definitely give him a follow. I think that's awesome. Thank you, whoever is monitoring the account, for sharing that with us. So any questions on food photography right now? Any questions on food photography? Boop, boop, boop. No? All right. So here are some, like I said, this presentation is chock full of links to get you started in all these different areas. I went through and found some really good tutorials that'll take you through step by step. Again, if you want to get more into food photography, you can check out this guide or all these links that I had here. And afterwards, just email us for the presentation. We're happy to send that over. And just like I mentioned, we do have some links to Instagram, and I will get the Instagram profile of that was posted in the chat. I will go ahead and add that to here as well. So moving on to macro. So macro is something that I've wanted to do for a very, very long time. I did a little bit of macro at my time at Panasonic for GM, for General Motors, for their, they do accident investigation, but nothing like this kind of stuff. This stuff has always kind of blown me away. I bought the extension tubes. I bought the all the different gear that I need. I just haven't sat down and taken the time to really get into it. I've gone to several classes on it. So I took the information that I've learned, through those classes and kind of boiled it down to some of the most important information. Number one is find things that look totally different when viewed up close. So that's really what's going to build out these images and make them super impactful. So someone that had reached out to me or tagged me in an image, she actually had a rock collection at home. Her name's Stacy. She had a rock collection at home, and that's what she's been, just deep diving into macro photography. And those images or those rocks look so much different when you do that macro shot, when you're looking super, super close into things. And I think that that's what makes macro images strong. You're showing the viewer something that they could not see otherwise. So another thing you could do is stock up on flowers and things to photograph next time you go to the grocery store, especially since everybody is out of toilet paper. So now you don't have to waste your money on toilet paper. You can buy things to photograph up close and do some macro work. When you actually are setting up, you're going to want to step down the depth of field. So it is of field because it's incredibly thin. So you want to be focused on a very certain part of the image. And when you stop it down, when you stop down the depth of field, it's going to bring your viewers into exactly what you want them to see. As a recommendation, mid-range macros are probably the best for all purpose. So a 90 to 105, and those numbers are full frame. So if you are on a crop sensor or the one up, my mind is blanking, like the GFX and larger sensors, obviously that's going to change a little bit for you. For insects and bugs, you're going to want to be around the 150 macro, so that way you can keep your distance so they're not running away from you. And specifically with bugs, you want to kind of follow the same things with that we talked about yesterday in the birding live, and that is channel your inner Elmer Fudd and be very, very quiet as you're kind of sneaking up and getting in close. That 150 macro, it's going to allow you to be further away, but still get those close-up shots. If you don't want to purchase a new lens, or you don't have that lens, you can actually look at reverse rings or extension tubes. I got a little typo there. Sorry about that. Reverse rings or extension tubes. So what reverse rings do is they actually will screw into the like where your filters thread into, and you put your lens on actually backwards. And what it does is it'll turn your lens into a more of a macro lens, and you'll be able to achieve kind of that macro look because you'll be able to get in a lot closer. And then extension tubes, what it does is it actually gets your lens further away from that sensor. It's like I might actually have some laying around here. But it actually gets the lens further away from that sensor, so that way you can get more of a macro look from your current or existing lenses that you have. If your subject is not moving, then you should definitely try focus stacking. And what that means is you're going to take several photos with different things in focus, and then there are programs that will allow you to stack it together, or even like Photoshop will allow you to stack all those images together. And what it'll do, it'll make everything be in focus, or you can choose what you want in focus. This is also a feature that is built into Panasonic cameras. So we have that mode that allows it'll automatically in camera take several photos and then kind of merge them together. So that is available for Panasonic users. Nick, well, very informative. Well, I appreciate that, Nick. Thank you very much for joining. Appreciate you stopping by here for our live stream. So for resources, I found a couple good beginner tutorials. If you want to know a little bit more about those reverse rings or different things that you might need for macro photography, you can feel free to reach out, or stop by the store once we're open again, and we'll set up set up your camera with the reverse rings and kind of show you how that works, or put your camera on a focus, macro focus rail. That's something that we can all help you, kind of help you in store. So these resources are here for you. If you do want more tutorials, they are there for you to help. So another thing that we have is more Instagram inspiration. Again, like I said, if you've never done macro before, you're looking for different ideas for your macro, these are some really good ones that I found on Instagram. So if you're looking for some inspiration, there we go. So what questions do we have about macro photography? Macro photography. Doesn't look like any so far. Quiet group today. That's okay. So stop motion, let's talk about stop motion. So I did a little bit of stop motion when I was at Panasonic because that feature is built into the camera. And it's just so cool to see these things like come to life, like straight up Gumby style. And what's important with stop motion is to keep it simple, especially when you're getting started. Don't expect to do a Nightmare Before Christmas, Gumby, any of these full-length features. The Curse of the Weird Rabbits, I think that was another stop motion. Don't think that you're going to be doing that overnight. The key is to start super simple with Legos, with action figures. If you are cooking, you've probably seen them on Facebook or Instagram, the kind of animated food series where it shows like what's going into the bowl. And, that's all simple stuff that we can do at home for like tutorials or just to kind of stretch our creative muscles. But it's really important just to keep it simple. Another tip would be to use the mobile app for your camera, your mobile app for your phone to trigger your camera. So that way you don't have to touch or move your camera when you press that shutter button. This is really important for cameras that don't have the built-in time-lapse function. So that way you're not introducing any camera shake. Again, the idea of stop motion, what it is you're taking several photos. So a video is just moving frames. So at 30, 60, however many frames per second. Well, the same thing is true with stop motion, but we're physically taking those still frames one by one, and then we're assembling them together and saying how many frames per second that you're going to play them back at. And what it does is it animates all those frames together. So it's kind of like a flip book, if you will. I would definitely use built-in functions of your camera before buying any software. There's things like iStopMotion, Dragon, I forget what it's called. I'm going to cheat and go forward. Did I put it in here? I did not. There's it's Dragon something, but it's like a $400 software. So I don't recommend that unless you are getting to the point where you need that software. You're like doing a deep dive. And this is a niche too that I think there is a viable business opportunity for photographers to go in and do explainer videos or animated videos to explain things for other businesses. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily just have to be fun. It's something that I feel like there is an opportunity to use this to market for brands. If your camera doesn't have, your big camera that you have doesn't have the ability to do stop motion, I would definitely start with a mobile app. I mean, there's a lot of stop motion apps out there that'll work on your mobile phone. Again, our job here is to, you know, broaden your horizons and try something new. You might not have known that these apps were out there, but just search the App Store for stop motion, either Android or Google or Apple. I've used them both to do these things, and they work really, really well. And they assemble your video for you, and it's a great starting point. If you are joining, you know, maybe your kiddos are at home and you're looking for a fun project to do, stop motion is a great way to use your Legos. I feel like it's a much better way to use Legos than, you know, you stepping on them at 4 a.m. It's better to have them all in one place and actually like create something cool with stop animation and kind of celebrate that, whether that's on YouTube, social media, wherever. But social media, it's just kind of cool because it's a different perspective that most people don't ever see. And the last tip that I have is don't change your exposure. Otherwise, you'll get this kind of weird flicker built in as you're playing back your video, as it's going frame by frame. So I would highly suggest not changing your exposure. So some resources for stop motion. This last one's pretty cool. It's actually how to create those food ones that we see on Instagram and Facebook all the time, the kind of food stop motion ones. That's this last one, and it's how to do it on using Photoshop. So that's a really good link on how to do that kind of step by step. And then some inspiration. I do want to draw your attention to this video here. I just want to make sure it's going to play. It looks like it will. So this is two teen brothers started this 8 years ago. They actually recreated the entire Toy Story 3 with different toys and stop motion. So this is all done with using stop animation, which to me is crazy that these kids took this time and they had that, like, I mean, it took them 8 years to do this. So these are the things that you can do with stop animation. So again, this is an 1 and 19-minute long video. And it looks like they even did a little bit behind the scenes too. So definitely take that look. I think that's going to be the ultimate inspiration that these kiddos did that. But then I also threw in a couple other Instagram profiles that kind of highlight stop motion type of stuff. So are these links available anywhere? Yeah, so all you have to do is shoot us an email, and there will be, at the end of the presentation, you'll have the email. You just have to email, and we will send you that link. Great question. Great question. So self-portraits. I think that's a great thing to tell right now, because this is a time for you to do the documentation of what's going on and how your lives have changed. And doing those self-portraits, I think, can be very powerful for the next generation. And it's an exercise too for you to be in front of the camera. And I think it's super important for us photographers to be in front of the camera just as much as behind the camera, because if we don't, our story won't be told. We won't be part of the historical record. So making sure that we do things like self-portraits and doing projects like self-portrait projects are super important to the next generation. So like here, I did a self-portrait when I was in Ireland. I'm standing on some rocks and just photographing. I mean, that was the last one that I took, but you know, so to throw in here. But I try to take as many selfies as possible with my wife, with the dogs, just as I'm experiencing different parts of life, because, I mean, we're at a point now where, you know, we're stuck inside. So I think these self-portraits are just going to be super powerful in the future for future generations. So when it comes to self-portraits, what stories do you want to tell? Like, what is this portrait going to convey? Is it going to be a feeling of, you know, sadness because you're stuck inside? Or is it going to be a portrait of fierceness, that you're hustling in this downtime, whether that's hustling to start up your freelance photography business, or you're hustling to do things like this live stream to make sure that we can still connect with our customers? Like, what is your story that you are going to tell? Because I think that's going to drive everything: the lighting, the posing, where you're actually going to put it. I do want to call attention to a and I'll put the link in here. It's a friend of mine. His name's Paul Giroux. He's one of the Sony artisans, but he's doing portraits right now of families through their windows. So since they can't come outside, he has some powerful, powerful portraits of him taking photos like from the sidewalk as they're like posed inside their windows. And they're just some of the most moving, powerful images that I've ever seen. So he is taking that story and he is using that and he is telling that story through his photos. And your self-portrait should do the same thing. So what are the basics? I mean, really, you just need, a tripod, a way to hold your camera still. From there, it's really important that you pre-focus your camera. So you can either take like a broom and set it where you're going to stand, a sweeper, and then switch your camera to manual mode, and then basically just go in there, stand in the photo. Whether you're just going to use a self-timer, or an even easier way to do it is to use the Wi-Fi remote app that most cameras have these days. So you can actually stand in front of the camera, focus the camera, and then take the photo. Really cool thing, if you look up any of the things that I share in the next slide, you'll see a lot of them are based on reflections and, self-portraits and reflections. So definitely if there are mirrors in your house or places where you can see reflections, that gives a really, really cool and powerful perspective of a self-portrait. And you would want to follow the same rules you would for your regular model, your regular client, with the posing that you want to do. That posing is part of telling that story. Am I going to be kind of hunched over at this chair because I'm so tired of creating content these last couple days? Or am I going to be in my, jogging and running in, my running outfit because during this, these adjusted hours, I've been able to run before I leave home. So those are different stories that I would be able to tell based on my posing, based on the clothing that I'm wearing. So keep those in mind for your self-portraits as well. So what are some resources for self-portraits? So here's 5 of the things that I found, and whether those are ideas, whether those are how-to articles, a lot of them are how to be a little bit more creative with your self-portraits. And there are actually a couple Instagram accounts that are 100% just self-portrait accounts. And I think that's like super, super powerful. I mean, there's a fine line between, being super into yourself and having like this glamorous Instagram account, and then one of kind of self-portraits in a very artistic style. And these ones that I shared here are in that very artistic style. I think it's cool that people can actually take photos of themselves and have a strong, powerful Instagram account. So our number 5, birds, nature, and wildlife. Number 1 would be watch yesterday's live that we did. It was like 56 minutes long about the actual all aspects of nature and wildlife. But to kind of go over some of the tips and things that you can do would be wait for cloudy days. Light is everything when it comes to bird photography, or with photography, and birds are definitely no exception to that. Same thing with nature and wildlife. I mean, you have to keep an eye on the weather because the weather is part of that story. For me, it's embrace higher ISO, especially when you're actually in the woods. There are so many great software titles out there that can help do noise reduction. So feel free to bump up your ISO so that way you can get that shutter speed to freeze action, whether that's for birds, whether that's for other wildlife. Don't be scared of popping up that ISO. Set your shutter speed and aperture manually, and then use auto ISO. That's how I shoot. That doesn't mean that's how you have to shoot. I just feel like I'm in control, but I have a little bit of creative fluctuation in that I can use exposure compensation to make it brighter or darker. So that's generally how I'm shooting. You want to be aware of your background and composition. Again, this is no different than any other anything with photography. We have to make sure that we have the background is just as important as our foreground. And then finally, anticipate the birds. And it's really important for you to go out and scout beforehand. So that way you can kind of get an idea of how the birds act or how they move or where they kind of hang out and find those hot spots. Here's some resources specifically for bird photography, because right now I feel like that's going to be your best bet. I mean, right now the birds are, if you're in Ohio, they're on the move and you're starting to see, some color. You're starting to see a lot of different birds out there. So I think birds is the best thing to focus on right now. And if you can see other wildlife out there, that's cool too. I mean, I'm not saying that wildlife isn't out there, but right now the birds, because it is coming into spring, it's a great time to start your bird photography. Some inspiration for some of my favorite bird photographers. I put those in there for you as well. So that way you can get some inspiration. And then let's jump into a bonus round. I promised 5. But we're going to go into a lightning bonus round. And these I didn't go and create like tips and stuff, but I did want you guys to be thinking about a couple other things you could do. Number 1, you could take that class that I recommended from the PPA in any of these areas, or maybe it's on business. Maybe, you know, this is a time where you're laid off from your job, or you know, you're working from home and you can have that class on in the background on how to start your business. There's tons of business courses over at the PPA, so that's one thing you could do. Number 2, you could finally tackle video. I can almost say with certainty that the camera that you have has a video function, and if it doesn't, your phone does. So finally take that leap and try video. You know, try doing this. Try, you know, explaining or telling your story through video, or just video around you, like kind of what's going on. This is a time that you have to not be scared. So, and this could open up even more doors for you. You could be, you know, you can open this up to now, you could add video to your services. It's just a really good time to kind of have that, the ability for us to kind of slow down and try things, practice things. The other thing is photographing your pets. I missed National Puppy Day by 1 day. It was yesterday. My wife and I, we have 1 German Shepherd pit that's a little older, but we just adopted 2 puppies. So I've been, you know, haven't had time to photograph them, but that is something that I'm definitely going to be doing once we can kind of get out a little bit more, or I have a little bit of time off of content creation. You could photograph your pets because they're part of the story and what you're going through. They're the ones that really won out in all this, you know, having you home and spending that time with them. It's a good time to print some photos, whether you have a photo printer at home, or you can send them directly to us. We're still doing all of our, you know, printing. We can print on metal, canvas, all that fun stuff. Or if you do want to print at home, you know, we have printers that you can buy in store. We have the paper, or wherever you get your prints. Just print to go. It's time to go through some of your photos and print them off, put them out around your home, so that way your artwork is up on your walls. Real estate, which that looks like I spelled it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's right. Real estate photos. So let's say you've wanted to get into this niche and you haven't known where to start. Now's a good time. I mean, you're in your house, you are stuck in your house. So start practicing real estate photography with the editing and HDR stuff and the wide angles and stitching photos together. Now's a perfect time to jump into that niche as well. Also, there might be some changes coming up in the housing market where there might be more photographers needed for real estate. So I think that's a really good, important thing to check out right now. And then finally, film. You know, I have my Leica film camera here somewhere. I picked up a couple rolls of film while I was in the store the other day because I now have time to shoot. And I'm going to shoot with intent. I want this story, what we're going through, the emptiness in the streets, the, you know, being home, eating it, you know, having meals at home. Those are things that I want to capture on film. So I picked up a couple rolls. So I'm going to be shooting a little bit more film. So how do I get these slides from today? For the low cost, no, I'm just kidding. So you just have to reach out to us in any of the methods that I mentioned here. So if you want to email sales@thepixelconnection.com, we'll get that link sent over. You can reach out to us in, you know, direct messages on Instagram and Facebook. Give us a call. We'll be at the store. The store's open in about 23 minutes. So I have to hurry up and get over there. And then yesterday's blog post, I also put up here as well. So if you want to reference that, that was all about birding. So our goal is to take this information and have it live on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. So you will be able to access it there. So thank you guys so much for watching. I am going to open this up for any questions. Artie Morris has a great website, Birds as Art. Thanks for putting that out there. That is awesome. It's one I have not heard about. We have another one here. Thanks for all the great tips. Absolutely, John. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it, man. What do we have here? Landscape photography and astrophotography are great subjects as well. So this is one thing that I'm hoping we actually have an astrophotography workshop coming up. You can find that on our Eventbrite page or our Facebook page, where we're going to be jumping into astrophotography. I think, again, that's a perfect thing to jump onto and take a look at. We might put actually a live together about those two things as well. Donna Mahilo Houston, you have the same last name as me, and that's my mother's maiden name. Hi, Mom. Hi, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Thanks for commenting. Very interesting. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you. Enjoyed your presentation. Absolutely, Pam. Again, my goal today was to get you thinking about other things to try. So what are the next steps? So what are we going to do to keep this conversation alive? Now, obviously, we are going to we're going to keep doing these lives every day. We're going to make sure that we are reaching out to you to make sure you're okay. Sorry, I'm going to our Instagram page right now, but I'm going to reach out to you guys and make sure everything is going well. But another thing you can do is you can do hashtag pixel connection on these images that you're creating. So let's say you try something new with, time lapse or stop motion or astrophotography, anything. We want to know what you guys are doing. What is the community around us? What are you guys doing? And please do hashtag pixel connection or tag us, because what we're going to do is we're going to start highlighting all of our users, all of the people that make us want to come to work every day. That is you guys. So please, please, please tag hashtag pixel connection or tag us on Instagram, Facebook, social media, so we can share your work. We want to see what you guys are creating. So thank you guys very much. I'm going to head to the store now. If you need absolutely anything, please feel free to reach out. Thank you guys and have a good one.